If a child is misbehaving, it really means that we just simply haven't taught them to behave. It has nothing to do with the misbehavior. It has to do with inadequate behavior. And that's the mindset that we've got to get. The mindset is that we've got to do a better job of reinforcing and teaching the behavior that we want, rather than focusing so much on the misbehavior. When we focus on the misbehavior, we're going to get more of it. Or the best we can hope for is we're just going to get more confusion. If we don't teach the proper behavior, all we're going to get is more confusion or more misbehavior. So, I really want you to think about that. Now, as a kind of a story, this happened just a couple of weeks ago with my granddaughter, and I call your attention to the fact that she's 3 years old, barely. In fact, actually she's not quite 3. She's coming up on 3 here in a couple of weeks. So you all know from your in-depth study of 3-year-olds what you can expect from a 3-year-old, and she's a rather lively 3-year-old. And we called up. We were going up Salt Lake. I told you about going up to the zoo and stuff, and so we called up on a Saturday night and said, "Hey, why don't you guys meet us over at this restaurant for dinner?" And so they said, "Great." So we got to the restaurant, and they weren't there yet. So I called up and I said, "Hey, you guys coming over?" And said, "Yeah, we'll be there, but we're not there yet." And so we waited for a while and called up. They still weren't there, and I said, "What's up?" And my son said, "Well, we're negotiating with terrorists," meaning my granddaughter. I said, "Oh?" He said, "Yeah." And so found out a little later on that negotiating with terrorists meant that in their efforts to potty train her, which they're being quite successful with, they decided that she needed to go pee-pee in a potty before they went over to the restaurant, and she decided that she was going to be a kitty. Did I tell you guys about that? I didn't tell you about this one yet, did I? No. I didn't think of. So she was a kitty, and kitties don't go pee-pee in the potty. So she was a kitty, and kitties don't go pee-pee in the potty. And so Mommy and Daddy said, "Well, but we're going to go to the restaurant with Papa, so you need to go in the potty." And she goes, I'm a kitty, and they don't go pee-pee in the potty." And they said, "Well, that's great, but you need to go in the potty so we can go to dinner with Papa." And she said, "Meow." And they said, "Well, yeah, okay, but you go into the potty so we can go." And she said, "Meow." And they said, "Well, maybe you need to go up to your room and think about this so that we can get ready to go." And so she went up to her room to think about it, and they went up in a couple of minutes and said, "You ready to go potty so that we can go?" And she said, "Meow." And they said, "All right," and left her in her room for a little while, and went back up a few minutes later, and they said, "You ready to go yet?" And she said, "Meow." And they said, "Well, now, we really need to get ready to go. We're running a little bit late, and Papa's waiting for us, and everybody's over there, and they're all waiting for us, and we really need to go," and all this. And she said, "Meow." And they said, "Now, and started stressing this fact a little bit, and the more they got stressed about it, the more she said, "Meow." So they got a little more stressed about it, and they got a little more strenuous about it, and she looked at him right in the eye and said, "Meow." And so they left her in the room a little while longer and went downstairs and got the other baby ready and got all ready to go, got their jackets on, went back upstairs to the room to get her ready to go, and said, "You really need to go now." And she said, "Meow." And they said, "Well, you can be a kitty about any time you want to be a kitty, but right now you need to be a little girl, and you need to go potty so that we can go to the restaurant." And she said, "Meow." And they said, "Well, if you don't go to the potty, we're going to have to put a diaper on you, and we'll go to the restaurant, because if you can't go to the potty, then you can't be a big girl, and we'll have to put a diaper back on you, and we'll go to the restaurant." And she said, "Meow." And they're just like, ugh. And that was about the point that my son said, "We're negotiating with terrorists." And then in a stroke of brilliance, my daughter-in-law said, well, you know, kitties don't wear special earrings, and I have special earrings for little girls that can go pee-pee in the potty and go to the restaurant. And she said, oh, well, okay, let's have the earrings. And she went down, went pee-pee in the potty, and we went to the restaurant. You get the whole point of reinforcement with a 3-year-old? Here's the moral of the story, is that all that it takes is you've got to make the reinforcement more worth it than what they've already got going. Now for her, the reinforcement of power, of being a kitty, and getting mom and dad being all spun up over sitting there looking them in the eye and saying meow, was more reinforcing than anything else they had going on until mom came up with the brilliant reinforcement of getting to wear earrings, which, by the way, were just hoops hung over the top of her ears. And that's all it was. And so that was more reinforcing than the power. And all of a sudden that was like, bing! And mom came up with the reinforcer, and it's like, bam, now we're on it. That's all this whole thing is about. And mom and dad, you've got to come up with an understanding, be close enough to your kids to know what it is that my kid wants and likes that's more important to them than what this 3-year-old or 2-year-old or 1-year-old or 15-year-old or 16-year-old finds self-reinforcing. That's the ticket.